Is there anybody out there? Can anybody hear me? Because it looks like we are live. Hi, congratulations. You've discovered another meta egg where we look at, I guess, pop culture a little bit wonky. Now, one of the things that we do here is usually talk about the reoccurring themes, or what if you watched our last show, we called archetype casting. Sometimes it's called composite character, in which you take an actor's roles and you like combine them all together into like one entity. But some people do this with directors, or just anything artistic that a person produces sort of kind of has that little imprint on it, or at least that's the theory that Meta Egg is going with. One of the people who do that the best is our guest today, Alex Fulton. Hello, sir.
Hello, Will. Thanks for having me.
Alex is the proprietor of Cryptokubrology, which you can find on either Substack or X. Am I correct?
Yeah, cryptokubrology.com and at cryptokubrology on Twitter. CryptoK for short. Sort of is easier to say. As for what that is, it sort of basically really just boils down to it's a kind of a study of synchronicity. It's a study of media. If you think about, well, the phrase is based on cryptozoology, which is the study of like paranormal biology or whatever. And I think we've kind of settled on cryptokubrology as being the study of paranormal media. And
when you say we, who is we?
We is me and Sean Montgomery, aka Sean Fella on YouTube, who's been around for years with his videos on Kubrick. And he's the one that came up with that, with cryptokubrology, and I kind of partnered up with him almost 10 years now, and we've been working together, developing everything. And and then this movie came out, and kind of seemed like it was directly targeting me.
What do you mean? In what way?
Well, the main character. The main character, of course, is Jason Schwartzman's character. Is basically visually and audially based on Stanley Kubrick, the man, the person. He's basically just a Kubrick impression.
Because he's a filmmaker, right?
Well, in this one, he's a photographer, which is what Kubrick was, originally, and is at heart, I think, a photographer. He's a war photographer named Augie Steenbeck, and I mean, yeah, we can talk about it, but
no, we're going to talk about it.
I guess that's why we're here.
I mean, okay, so that's one of the things that it kind of sets cryptokubrology apart, is you give like a great deal of significance to Kubrick as some sort of nexus point, I guess is what you would say. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it is. Like, he kind of just emerged. And I think anyone who was following, like you were following Sync way back when, it was just kind of like Kubrick was the 0 point of like the Sync kind of ethos or whatever. The symbology was just like he kind of laid it all down, and combined with 9/11 and everything. So we just kind of just kept going with that, and just kind of had Kubrick at the center of our link. And it also proved out to be like, because I haven't even mentioned this yet, but like a lot of the stuff I do is with the date line and like the calendar, and using these numbers to kind of chart events against each other. And so Kubrick's birth and death days are like, and his lifespan is like extremely important, and like telling synchronicity in itself that we kind of use as a fundamental constant in the study. So, and that'll come up later. I mean, I'm always referencing what we call the K span, which is 25,792 days, which is how long Kubrick's life lasted, and using it on other people's lives and so forth. So and that's interesting. So yeah, here we got the Millennium Hotel here.
Right. I was just, it looks like there's pictures of it that have been updated with the One World Trade Center.
Oh yeah.
In the background now, because one of the things that was a nexus point for synchronicity research was the WTC, World Trade Center, having the architectural replication of the monolith.
Yep. The hotel, or are you talking about the One World Trade Center?
Well, I'm talking about like the Millennium Hotel that was right against the World Trade Center is an exact, or was kind of an homage to
the monolith.
Kubrick, the monolith in 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Exactly.
And then a lot of people say that it's significant, the fact that 2001 was sort of like prophesized, or there's a lot of like gravity as far as like the meaning behind 9/11 and the symbolism in 2001: A Space Odyssey.
And it raises questions about, what Stanley Kubrick knew, and what did he know? And then, you remember Mark Leclerc, his whole theory was that Kubrick helped plan the events of 9/11 and encoded it into his movie, not into Eyes Wide Shut.
Right. Very influential writer, but that kind of spawns from the ideas of like the moon landing, right? That Stanley Kubrick somehow like faked the moon landing and then had foreknowledge in the events that were going to happen in 2001. And so not only did he hide the secret of the moon landing within his fiction, but also foretelling of future events by the same cabal.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be, that's a pretty standard, but like, it's also, there's more to it, because it's like, that's the reason that we kind of have him as this patient zero, because the more you look at it, the more you kind of start to feel like Stanley Kubrick is like behind everything. And it's like a weird like phenomenon that starts to like, and that's when we start to bring in that theories of like time travel and like paranormal sort of things that possibly are influencing human events and humans and Kubrick, what was going on in this guy's brain. And it kind of relates to, to Mr. Sugar.
Oh yeah, we can talk that.
We don't have to get into that yet, but it's just kind of
but I mean, in the same aspect, Anderson kind of feels like he's giving soft disclosures as well. I like using that term for him, but you use the term when you explain. You sent me what is it, diorama?
Yeah.
And so diorama, like the way that I see dioramas is like if you're going through the Smithsonian or if you're going through a museum and you kind of like are looking at an historic event of like cavemen or a cryptid, say that if you're going through and looking at these creatures that you don't know if they existed or not, right? Like all we have are the bones, but they'd be in like this diorama. So it was like a display for school kids about things that existed that they knew nothing about. And I feel like that's I kind of get the feeling like with Kubrick, with Wes Anderson, that like he knew more than me is the best way I can explain it. Like,
yeah. Well, yeah, that's a question. It's like, what do these guys know? And the more I watch Wes Anderson, the more I see all of the Kubrick allusions that he puts in there. And the thing also about diorama or whatever is that I think Kubrick is the one that first started doing diorama, because whatever it is diorama is just like total control over the frame.
And like what the audience sees, you're manipulating it at the same time. You're almost giving the audience a finger because you're letting them know that it's not real.
True, yeah, but it's an illusion. It's an absolute like illusion that's there in complete control of every like aspect. And Kubrick's movies, like The Shining, when you watch it and you think of it as a diorama, it's like that's when you start to look at everything going on in the background. Like his movies are like an iceberg, or like 99% subtext of like the things that are being implied by just what's on the screen, not what's being said or what's being depicted, but like the alignments and timings of
when the what's his face? Scatman Crothers, can you hear me? The Scatman Crothers, when he's giving them the tour, and he's like kind of going in one door, and then he'll come out another one, so to speak.
Yeah.
And literally. It's like a diorama that gives you the impression that the hotel itself is almost like a maze or a labyrinth, or it's changing or moving. And like,
it's alive.
When Jack is at the typewriter, and like there's a chair that is in one frame and then not another one, and it looks like almost sloppy filmmaking. But like, so it will show Jack, then it will show Wendy, and then it will show Jack, and there'll be a chair behind him. But when the camera comes back to Jack, the chair is missing, and all of a sudden Jack is like pissed off for no real reason, right? Mm-hmm. And he's kind of like, well, Wendy, if you'd give me time to work alone, and so it's like he was aware that the hotel was like moving or organic or whatever. But also like what diorama kind of like plays when she goes into that one room, and there's like it's like a typical horror movie where like there's skeletons in a room and stuff, mm-hmm. and it's like it's almost like being in like Disney's Haunted Mansion where it looks fake, like
and those the cobwebs, that's shot where she sees all the dead bodies and they're cobwebs, but those also kind of become, if you want to look at them, puppet strings or like marionettes, which is the kind of deal where what you would see in the Wes Anderson kind of movie diorama that's going on with his little animals and creatures that he likes. So, and that kind of the puppet string thing is like how much of all of our reality is a puppet show, and how much are we all being puppeteered into like doing whatever we're doing. And that's being John Malkovich is another central text and
of Anderson's, you mean? Yeah.
Well, that's a different director, but
that's Spike.
That's Jones. Well, it's Charlie Kaufman wrote it, and then Spike Jones
directed it. But that's definitely a Kaufman-esque.
Yeah, Kaufman, and that also kind of relates to the Montauk, because like that there's a time travel element, and Montauk is like a very prominent time travel story. Whether or not it's bullshit or not, but like
it doesn't matter.
There's elements of truth, I think, that are interesting, like the fact that they use children to go through time because their minds or whatever can handle it, and that's a very big theme in Wes Anderson too. Is like the children are the like adults in the room usually, like
you're talking,
and that's Asteroid City, which we kind of stopped talking about, but Asteroid City is also all about the sort of relation of like the parent to the children, these like different generations. But and then DARPA, like Asteroid City, so it's like they meet out in the desert, and it's basically DARPA for kids, like a DARPA camp for kids. And Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, there's like dignitaries there and parts of the military teaching the kids about special technologies and stuff. It's kind of weird. Like,
yeah, well, they're extremely smart children that have like got these ridiculous inventions. Like, so Kubrick's son, I'm going to call him Kubrick because he just looks like Kubrick, but his name is Augie. His son is named Woodrow, aka Brainiac, which is kind of a Stanley Kubrick Hal scenario. Brainiac is Hal. Anyway, and his little invention is to broadcast. He's got this thing that's will project onto the moon, and it's like he's projecting an American flag onto the moon. He's like, oh, it'll have implications for interstellar advertising. And so I have some notes here when that actually occurred. That was an interesting timing on that.
Oh, you mean as far as time code?
Yes.
And then doing the math, or
because there's like, if you watch this movie, like almost every scene, especially every scene with the Kubrick character Augie, is like there's time. It's all about time. There's references to time, clocks ticking.
Yeah, it had a very, like, I thought of I wondered if there was any, like, it's like Dr. Manhattan, those scenes in Dr. Manhattan where he's like he's going through this whole like existential crisis about time, so to speak.
Yes, for sure. Dr. Manhattan is kind of
that would be the crater in the middle of New Mexico, like the secret experiments that go on in this dark camp.
Exactly. Okay, here's what I found that I was trying to find. It's that when he turns on his machine to project the USA flag on the moon, it's at 1776 seconds into the movie. 1776 is what I call the fifth seal of Crypto K, the fifth of the 5 numbers. And
so you call them seals? Is
yeah,
that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So different time codes or different numbers basically represent like sort of like little keys or unlocks.
Yes, basically, yeah. That's sort of one way we've come to
What are
think
your
of them.
seals? I want to hear your seals, partner.
Yeah, the 42. Well,
42.
There's 5 seals.
Okay.
42 is number 1.
Okay, I see where you're going. Let's do this.
153, 237, 666, and 1776.
1776 would also be the start of the United States, right? Like
correct. Yeah, correct. And it's also kind of like loosely tied to 777 also. So like I almost think of them as interchangeable. 1776 and 777. So anyway, 1776 seconds into the movie, you see an American flag projected onto the moon. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, in terms of like the editors must be doing this on purpose, but maybe not. And that's the sort of central question of all this
I've
work.
seen it a lot. Like there's been different things that have like, what was that movie? Hancock, I remember. Remember Hancock, Jason Bateman's trying to like project some sort of advertisement on the moon or whatever. And I think it actually happened in Watchmen too. Wasn't there something about him?
I think it even has happened in like Infinite Jest, the book. Like there's something along those lines, which is another story about like really precocious children. And the
well, but bringing it back to Montauk, like Jim Carrey's got quite a few. In fact, the name Montauk like comes up in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind or whatnot. But like the idea of the Montauk idea of warping somebody's brain through media or whatever is really pronounced, especially in like Truman Show, as if like we're being watched by the watchers from the moon.
Absolutely, yeah. Truman Show, Harry S. Truman dropped the bomb, and
boom,
all kinds of other things.
Can you go through the story real quick of what exactly happens and the important points of Asteroid City, though, just to keep us on task so we don't get
sure. Yeah. So Asteroid City, like I say, it starts with this family, their car breaks down. Well, okay, there's like multiple. It's like if you know Wes Anderson, there's nested stories within stories. So you get like you get a radio play on stage, which is telling the story about the production of a theatrical production called Asteroid City, which has been written by this famous writer who's having a love affair with the main star, and but then you also get the actual play, which is the drama set in color. The radio stuff is in black and white. The real life stuff is in black and white. And then the stage stuff is in color and different aspect ratios. And the story is basically there's in the Nevada desert, there's a Junior Stargazer science fair, basically, which is kind of like I say, a DARPA for kids meetup. But then in the middle of their speech, their ceremony, an alien comes down and steals the meteorite and then runs off. And at that point, it becomes a quarantine. And that's the other thing about this movie is it was written during COVID, so it's like a quarantine film. So there's lots of ideas of that. So they get everybody together, and then they sort of all start to like lose their minds.
Okay, because the way that there's a certain amount of loneliness in this because everybody's separated. Like you meant, like the main star Schwartzman is like opposite Scarlett Johansson, and they're like talking through windows with like separation between them.
Yes.
So I mean, it makes sense. I get when it comes out and it's being made in like 21 through 22, it comes out in 23. So all of that would have been taken into account. But
there's a lot of scenes where it seems like, well, at least one I can think of, where it seems like somebody's been pasted in, like they filmed them in like different rooms or something. Like with Tom Hanks. So one thing, okay, so yeah, Jason Schwartzman plays the guy that looks like Kubrick, but his stepfather is played by Tom Hanks, and his name is Stanley. Stanley Zach.
Oh yeah. I remember thinking that was significant. Stanley Zach.
Yeah, and I think it was it's Bill Klaus who kind of teed off on the fact that Tom Hanks looks like in this movie looks like McLuhan. He looks like Marshall McLuhan. He's tall. He's got like a little mustache, the gray. So it's sort of like this Kubrick McLuhan dialectic where disappointed sons in their father, or spectral fathers. Yeah, there you go. That scene.
His gun.
Yeah, he's always got a gun there.
Yeah, it's wild, man. It's just there's
whatever.
I mean, they're telling you like because of the double nature of like you're watching somebody make a movie, but you're watching the movie about the making of that movie, so to speak. So you're watching like the narrative progress on multiple levels, kind of lends to that paranoia of that you're being fucked with, right? Because
Sure. Yeah.
They're telling you what they're doing, so to speak.
And he does this a lot in his movies. Like the Life Aquatic is a good example of like you're not sure how much of it is like it's all a meta play. Steve Zissou, Bill Murray's character, will say cut, and then the shot cuts, and it's like, is he directing this movie or like what's going on here? But so this alien intervention scene is really interesting, or where what they're doing is they're sitting in the middle of this crater, watching this rare transit of Venus, I think. And the way they do that, you can't look directly at it, so they put boxes all over their heads. So, of course, if you know Kubrick, boxes. Like Stanley Kubrick's Boxes is a documentary about. You've seen this? You're familiar with Stanley Kubrick's Boxes?
Will? Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, but you're making me think of other things because, like, Stanley Kubrick does weird things, like always making people furniture and stuff of that nature. So they're using the box to kind of look at like the light show from the stars, right? But what is the significance with Kubrick and boxes then?
Well, there's a documentary called Stanley Kubrick's Boxes. And it's John Ronson. It was after he died. He goes in. It's basically like they're his boxes because he was all dissatisfied with the commercially available options of cardboard boxes to store all his stuff in. So he actually designed and created his own form of cardboard box. And so when he died, he left behind hundreds, if not thousands, of these boxes full of all of his archives of research and stuff. And this movie is about the first guy who gets to go in and kind of look through it all before it all gets taken off and archived. And so now boxes, it's like boxes also makes a pun on boxing, which, Kubrick's very first film was called Day of the Fight, which was basically a movie about a boxing match. And there's all kinds of references to boxing throughout his career. And that's sort of like a pun on the hexagon and the shape of the cube. He's Kubrick, which is, cube is a box. And
oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, I got you. I'm with you. I'm hanging in there.
I think it's like the story of like Isis or whatever. She's seated on a box, on a cube. That's like the mat, the veil of Isis is seated on a cube, just like the yogi and Mr. Sugar in that movie. when that's like, it's like the illusion of like levitation is seated on the box.
Oh, okay, yeah. You use the mirror box to kind of like give the illusion that you're. Oh, okay.
Right there, the cube of space, and then okay, so a cube, if when you draw a cube in 2D on paper, it becomes a hexagon. It's a six-sided figure, and hexagon relates it to Saturn, and the big hexagon on the north pole of Saturn, Stanley Kubrick related to Saturn, is another big kind of tent pole of Crypto K. Saturn being time and the all-consuming element of time, and also how time is like measured, and that's where we'd come in with the 5 seals. Like 5 seals plus the timeline equals profit, I guess, equals Crypto K.
The corpus hypocubus. This is excerpted from Wikipedia. Salvador Dali's Corpus Hypercubus. Yeah. During the 1940s and 1950s, Dali's interest in traditional surrealism diminished, and he became fascinated with nuclear science. Which goes back to like Asteroid City. You get what I'm saying? Like feeling like thenceforth the atom was his favorite food of thought, which is just the weird. That's like a surrealistic thing to say. The atom bombing at the end of World War II left a lasting impression, snapped him out of his daydream, so to speak. In 1951, his 1951 essay, Mystical Manifesto, introduced an art theory he called nuclear mysticism that combined his interest in Catholicism, mathematics, science, and Catalan culture in an effort to reestablish classical values and techniques, which he extensively utilized in Corpus Hypercubus. But of course, people do associate that to the hexagon and stuff of Saturn, as you were saying.
Right. And so when the alien comes down, actually, if in the private chat of StreamYard, I dropped a little thread, a Twitter thread where you can look at some of the pictures I put up last summer on this movie, and you can see in there the prominent hexagonal symbolism of the alien ship, and it's also green, as you can see in like the pictures you're showing. It's this deep, bright green, and I don't know if you remember from back in the day or whatever, but like there was a whole blog post about the green cubes of Saturn, like this being a trope, and it's just extremely explicit in this movie in 2023.
I'm trying to get something done here, but it's not working. Hold on just a second for me. Right. I will go back to here, then I will go back to, let's see.
Oh yeah, there's
there. That's what we want.
Yeah, right? It's a pretty long. There's a number of just little items in this that you can look at that are we could read, which are pretty fun. Like, the first day they commemorate September 23rd, 3007 BC. So it's like September is 7. The set is 7, so it's set 23, and that's the day of the
Kubrick boxes.
There's Stanley Kubrick's boxes.
Yeah, he does. I mean, it kind of the fact that the father is named Stanley, or the father-in-law is named Stanley. He's sitting there right behind him too.
Yeah, there's another shot there where I don't know where it is, but he can literally
right here. This so alien thing, right? What the alien comes down on is this thing, but what is this right over here?
That is a part when in the very beginning they bring the car into the garage, and he's like, there's something that you have either one of two problems. One is a cheap fix, the other one is going to be a complete disaster. And so then he takes this part out of a box, and he twists it on there. And you only see that picture for like a frame, two frames or something like that. But it's exactly
it's not a real piece. I knew that immediately. Like the symbolic of like the bottom apparatus of so the events are tied together.
Somehow it's very mysterious. There's lots of odd connections in this movie that makes me think there's like some kind of actual
very
solution.
Kubrickism. Like a lot of people have accused Kubrick of like intentionally trying to make people think different theories, and I could see where just being symbolic kind of creates that, but this is intentional because I know the scene is kind of like stands out when they show the part, and you're like, that's not a fucking real part.
No, it's total. And then when it breaks down, it's a totally magical thing. Like it's
synchronicity.
The whole yeah. And then he says it's a great line. He's like, I think you have a third problem we've never heard before. This very dialectical kind of line of 1 and 2 makes a third thing.
Because that's what the deal is the mom's dead, right? And I don't think like he told the children or something.
Yeah, he doesn't tell them at first, and then he eventually does. And that scene is interesting too. Like I was just watching it yesterday and taking all these notes. Of, like, just again, it's just all about time. Like I want to actually do a kind of super cut of this movie where all the references up to time are kind of pulled out, because it would be really overwhelming. Like so you would see what he's doing.
And here's the shape again. What is this?
Okay, so well, that's from Tar. That top shot
right here,
from the movie Tar, and then these are from The Shining. This is the eye of the bear, and this is above the elevator.
Right, I've seen that comparison before. So that's the stuffed animal bear that shows up in The Shining, and this is the elevator top.
Right, this little half circle kind of thing, and then then it becomes the ship, which is also, I think, a bear's snout. Like I think it's kind of like a nose.
Okay, like nice one. I'll accept it.
Ship.
Wow. Yeah, it's the same thing. But again with the bear.
Yeah.
And then we get another date in Act 2, July 1st, 1950, the day a top secret alien directive was signed, was also the birthday of David Duke.
Yeah. So I think earlier on in that I mentioned that 9/23/55, which is the day that the play starts, is the day the Emmett Till verdict came down. And then this day mentioned, July 1st, 1950, is the birth of David Duke. But it's also, I don't mention there, it's down below. It's if you go to the very bottom of this thread, there is a measurement there, that 153 there.
Right here?
Yeah. So that date, July 1st, 1950, is exactly 153 weeks after Kubrick's 19th birthday, which was the day the national security state was signed into existence by Truman's pen, and various other things occurred. 153 being the second seal for Crypto K.
You're right. Okay. Yes, 153. So it's like, what did you say? 42 was the first one?
Yeah, 42,
second one?
153, 237, 666, 1776.
666, 1776.
Yeah. So, okay. So, yeah, Kubrick's 19th birthday. In that shot there, he is a reference to 19. He says, when I met your mother, she was only 19. And that is another thing about this movie. The story, the kind of crux, you mentioned it actually, is between him and his wife, this sort of story of grief. And at the very end of the film, he reunites with who he calls the wife who played my actress, who is played by Margot Robbie. She was in the production, but she was cut. And then, so like the actor,
she was the actress he wished he had to play his wife, or so to speak.
Well, she was playing his wife, and then she was cut from the story. Like the scene was cut.
Family boxes.
So they don't use her anymore. But then he has the actor as the character has a kind of catharsis.
That's cool.
Meeting the actor is very kind of hard to explain, but it relates to Kubrick's wife and his marriage, which is another kind of thing about Crypto K we kind of find interesting. Like if you remember in Paths of Glory, Kubrick cast his future wife, Christiane Kubrick, in the role of the lady who's singing at the end to a crowd of drunk soldiers. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff like on like, okay, Montauk, Meet Me in Montauk.
Yeah.
Kind of like an eternal romance going on here, a Napoleon and a Josephine kind of deal. There it is.
Sophia. Yeah.
Oh, it's you, the wife who played my actress. And so literally like Christiane is the wife who played his actress, because like he married her, but so it's like he's more of his wife, she's more of his wife than an actress, like, if that makes sense. So what it all means is another story, but they're definitely pointing to it, like, and especially the fact that
clouding it up with, they're clouding it up so it could mean a couple of different things.
Yeah,
but sure. That's like the whole point of like the diorama aspect of it. So you don't know what's real and what's fake, right? You don't know how much of it's true or how much of it is like true adjacent, so to speak. Because the alien, like that's the kind of the message in the Alien, right? Because the alien isn't really an actor in a suit or meant to look real. It's totally stop motion. So it like plays the same like impactful imagery as like King Kong when it first came out, right?
Sure. Yeah, when he busts through in the kind of climactic moment is when everything's breaking down inside the play, and the guy who plays Augie just says, "Hold on a second, I don't understand this," and he just exits. He just, like Truman at the end of the Truman Show, he exits the stage and he goes backstage to have it out with the director, who is sort of God, you know. And but as soon as he leaves, you see the alien, who's being played by Jeff Goldblum, and he's saying, "Oh, I don't really play him as an alien. I play him as a metaphor." And so it's like you're immediately it's like okay, the alien is just this metaphor, and that's kind of like what's going on now with UAPs and all this stuff and ufology. That's the key thing that people have always taken the alien thing literally, when it's more of a Jungian thing, probably like an inner process. That's probably one.
Keep going.
That's probably one like point of the movie is like this whole 20th century kind of scientific atomic science, as you were like brought up, like it's kind of a cartoon. That's kind of what the thing is saying, I think, like because they're in this cartoon world, watching these cartoon atomic bomb explosions that aren't real. Because they aren't, but they also like aren't real because they're not even being taken seriously by the people that are like, it's just over there. It's like an atomic explosion, whatever. Who cares? Yeah. So that kind of relates to the real world too.
The meteor crater could very well be like a crater from an atomic bomb testing site, right?
Sure.
But like there's just this weird. There's like layers of meaning because they're talking about like real life relationships. And they're making it seem like it's a story about that, but there's so much like undercurrent or subtext on like what you like. They're telling you it's a metaphor. Like they're telling you over and over and over and over again that it's a metaphor.
Yeah. It's a play. And I guess we could talk about her, Scarlett Johansson, her character, Midge Campbell, who is probably meant to represent a number of people. One of them could be Marjorie Cameron of, Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard's group. But she's also kind of, Jack Parsons being the rocket scientist.
JPL.
But she's also very Judy Garland coded. Like she looks like Judy Garland. But also she's Scarlet. So there's like a metaphor. So she's the Scarlet Woman, which would make her Marjorie Cameron. Right. But she doesn't have the red hair. But
she doesn't. That's what she kind of symbolizes. And there's been like a connection between like alien invasions and the Scarlet Woman before. And so she's there in a way that kind of like you can kind of draw a correlation to her role in this to like Metropolis or whatever, the the old 1930s movie that like directly faced the Babylon kind of myth.
Yeah.
But it's
the original cut, interestingly enough, the original cut of Metropolis was 153 minutes long.
Oh, that's dope. Yeah, because that's what that's like one of your seals. So
yeah, I just have to note that all the time.
There's another part, like right here, the people who are in this movie are out of control. Because right here, I'm pretty sure all three of those have won Oscars.
Probably. Yeah, I think so. Has Willem won an Oscar?
Who?
Willem Dafoe.
I'm pretty sure Willem has. Willem's just a weird dude because Willard, like, he's got that new vampire movie coming out about Nosferatu, where he played he's playing Nosferatu, and like another movie he played the opposite of Nosferatu. So it's like this weird, like, he's just playing the same character. It's not even like even like symbolically, like it's direct.
Oh, it is. You're right. There's only one guy. It's like there's only one Willem Dafoe, so you can't get. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that movie. I'm looking forward to Nosferatu. Actually, it's going to be pretty sick, I think.
You can kind of feel when things are going to be like kind of heavy or kind of heavy-handed as far as symbolism goes.
Yeah, well, that guy's movies are really like.
This is a good. I think this is on target. I think that's
one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite things that I kind of little questions of like, what is this? What is he really going for here?
Right, the spaceship and the car are, and the box, the Stanley box right here. When you see the father, like, right here. So the father right there is Stanley, and he's got the box on his head. And then you zero in on the Stanley. It's kind of directly 1 + 1 equals Stanley box.
Also on his shoulder too, which is sort of a one
it's
symbol
in the shot. Like they moved it to put it in the shot. Like
absolutely perfectly framed to say my name is Stanley.
Very diorama-esque.
Yeah. The whole
like the ratios are like that in the show too. So when you took these steals, they come out in different ratios.
Yep. Yeah. The color stuff is in a wide aspect ratio, and then the black and white is in the old timey TV.
So it's literally like two different movies.
Yeah. It's two different movies, or it's a TV show within. It's a TV show about a play within a TV show or within a movie.
Yeah, because
lots of level. And like there is like just a very clear little thing. They're playing with the number 7, where it's like cabin 7 is burned down, and that's actually I have some. I don't know if I can share because I took some screenshots that aren't on.
Where's that Saturn right there?
Oh, on the podium.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cartoon Saturn right there on the podium.
If you
then of course there's the other Saturn drop. Over the hexagrams would be a Saturn drop. Like the heady days of synchromysticism produced a trope, the green cubes of Saturn, which you talked about earlier tonight. The 2 cube also represents as a hexagon, as seen on the Saturn's North Pole, or Emerald City, the Matrix, ruled by the architect, Saturn, Oz, all tinted green, and the AC, or Asteroid City, the alien ship, is a green cubic hexagon.
Right. AC also stands for, various things, but Aleister Crowley, and also Angus Cloud, he died a few weeks after this came out, and I wrote about that on my Substack.
Oh yeah, let's check out your Substack here in a second. Who is Angus Cloud, bro?
Oh, Angus Cloud. Well, he was an actor. He was on that show Euphoria.
With Zendaya.
With Zendaya, Sydney Sweeney, and everybody. And he died of an overdose July 31st, 2023. And there's just a whole bunch of synchronicities involving the timing of when he died, and it being in that summer of 2023 period, which had Asteroid City and also had Barbie and Oppenheimer come out on the same day.
That's kind of significant too.
Yeah,
because of course Margot Robbie being the hidden wife actress
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that's kind of wild, bro. And then the significance of Oppenheimer and the testing of the atomic bombs again.
Correct. Yeah. There's a lot. That was a big summer. That's sort of what actually really inspired me to create my Substack and write,
let's talk about your
publish
Substack.
all that stuff.
I can't ever spell it right.
It takes some time to.
I never really had like associated that to cryptobiology, but now I kind of do, and see the significance of the relationship between you and Lauren Coleman, because Coleman's a pretty big proponent of what you do.
He is, yeah, he always has been. I've been thankful for his support over the years. But yeah, I hadn't ever really settled on a good definition of cryptokubrology until I did, Sean and I came up with the whole study of paranormal media, like haunted media. That is what this is.
It's media that has some sort of like resonance of the soul that came before it, so to speak. I don't know how to put it. Like, how would you say that?
Well, it's like some things shine, some things don't, and like some movies shine. I mean, all movies shine, really. Like, and what we kind of do is like the systematic analysis with the timing. Like, so like when I go through this movie, I pay attention to when things happen just as much as like what happens. So like that's how I find things like 1776 seconds in, you see the American flag projected on the moon, and so that's what we just apply to everything, and that's the key defining feature of Crypto K, I would say, is that focus on time.
This is X. For some reason, that doesn't work as a link. I'll copy it and go over here and post it. Okay. All right. Now, let's look at here for a second. So sorry about this. I'm gonna have to.
It's okay.
Show everyone this guy for a second. So there's a lot to talk about here. Like, there's a lot to, like, we could do shows. Like, we're just right now in this series, I'm just worried about movies and kind of like introducing the ideas of synchromysticism into a larger population.
Sure. Totally.
But
yeah, there's a lot here.
But tell me, what's going on?
Well, here? God, I mean, each one of these is a good 20-30 minute read. I did recently put it all. The most recent post, the top post, is all free. I did put the archives into paid, but yeah, this is just where I'm putting where I'm writing my detailed analysis of this stuff and kind of putting it all on the record, and one thing at a time. There's lots of stuff. There's certain things that will repeat and I'll go back to, like that, the possessed thing, and this is how it connects to Lost, the show. Possessed there is a Joan Crawford movie from 1931. That's like the first instance that we found of the number 237 being used in film. And what's amazing about that is that Joan Crawford, who's in that movie, in 1947 is in another movie called Possessed. It also has 237 in it at the exact same time. So you watch them both at the same time and you get them both at the same time. Then Joan Crawford was later in Dallas for the Kennedy assassination, in her duties as on the Pepsi Corporation board. And then RFK dies 237 weeks after JFK, at the Ambassador Hotel where Joan Crawford used to party. So, and then the midpoint of those two Possessed films is the day The Wizard of Oz came out, on the 237th day of 1939. So that's interesting.
That's wild. Like you said, possessed media, so to speak. Like
exactly. And so we kind of use these numbers and these dates as glue and literally seals, like things that kind of are just like acausal acausally oriented things are kind of glued together through time through these cycles of these numbers. It's a real, I think, phenomenon that's going on. I've got a bunch of these.
Why is this redacted? Why is this redacted?
Good question.
Because of the intricate synchronicity of the events, concepts, and personalities involved, there is a redundancy and overlap in categories and presenting the information. The redundancy, i.e. the repetition, is considered necessary for better understanding, and the overlap, i.e. the extending over of the outlined parts, has to do with the interrelation of the things being explained.
Right?
Yeah, there's something in there.
Makes sense. I really found him to be a kindred spirit, which is why I'm using those quotes, so many quotes from him. But yeah, this relates it to Aleister Crowley again, and Mulholland Drive. Like the whole point of that post was
Libra Al, right? This is because it was
Mm-hmm.
funny in that we did a show right before this with Andreas, and we talked about him in relationship to the Christopher Lloyd character in Angels in the Outfield is named Al. Like he grabs the hat and puts it on his head, and he's like, "Call me Al.
Call me Al." That's his also like Quantum Leap too. He's the Dean Stockwell is Al, isn't he? I think.
Yeah.
He's
Sam
like an
Al, like
Quantum Leap being the time traveling story about which is remote viewing. Basically, that's the thing. It's like time travel might be like remote viewing thing.
Well, I've read books on remote viewing, and one of the guys says that you can't remote view the answer you're looking for unless you see it in the future. So it's like you can't go and find a little girl who's been kidnapped unless in your future you see it in the newspaper or something, which is like, yeah, it's mind messing. Like,
yes,
because you looking for it means you're going to find it, which means you're going to, it's weird. It's like the whole time traveling, or your guardian angel is yourself from the future or something along those lines.
Yeah, it might. I mean, Philip K. Dick kind of had speculations about this, where it's like it might be a genetic thing. Like you can travel through your own bloodline. Like somehow back. Cool, and it might be that like somebody or Kubrick like figured this out and like was causing trouble, or like set this whole world up somehow, set this whole timeline up somehow.
Well, the whole Kubrick death thing about him giving away secrets and Eyes Wide Shut or whatnot.
Yeah.
That whole idea.
Yeah, that's certainly been out there for a while. This is a great another alignment of things where it's perfectly symmetric, what we call a parent thesis, where two parents on each end of a timeline create the midpoint, or the child. And so on this one, it's 2307 weeks from Kubrick's birth to the birth of Harry Truman, and the same to the birth of Danny Lloyd, who plays Danny in The Shining. And it's also the same length of time between the birth of David Lynch and the premiere of Twin Peaks, which stars Harry S. Truman. So David Lynch and Danny Lloyd have the same initials. Yeah, so that's a kind of crazy alignment, just a fact. And then there's two Trumans, because there's Harry and Frank. If you watch The Return, there's like they have two Trumans. So that's the twin symbolism going on. But then there's also, well, I don't know.
Well, like we mentioned earlier, Truman Show and all of that noise, like the whole idea that it's some sort of simulation that just like gets redundant or repetitive. Yeah.
Truman Burbank, Bearbank. Actually, if you go up a little bit, there's one thing that's really spectacular, which is the big bus. Have you seen this? I think I've talked about it down a little bit again. It's this whole cannibalism arc thing where
here. When okay.
Well, it's the big bus. It's so Danny Lloyd right here. Yeah. Danny Lloyd is born October 13th, 1972, the same day Uruguayan Air flight goes down in the Andes Mountains where people survived by resorting to cannibalism. And so
Alive, the movie.
Yeah, Alive, yeah, that's the movie about it. And there's one on Netflix too right now.
Well, there's like a series or something about it right now, isn't there? Something, but it's referenced a bunch. Like, but the idea of the cannibalism is when he's like, "That's where the Donner Party is."
Right. They have this whole conversation in the car. So, but then this hits kind of more harder because when you think or realize that he says, "Oh, I don't know all about cannibalism. I saw it on TV." What he probably saw on TV was a story about the thing that happened the day he was born. So, like, that is some incredible foreshadowing of like this whole saturnine story of cannibalism that's being presented in The Shining, where the dad loses his mind and starts to,
yeah, I mean the kind of explicit references to cannibalism over and over.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also there's actually two things on the other side of the planet. Actually, Flight 217 crashed, killing 174 people. The deadliest airline accident ever up to that point happened the same day as Flight 217, which in the book The Shining, room 237 is room 217. So that's just another level of sync of, like, as I say in there, it's like, this is a hell of a temporal pedigree for your screen boy protagonist. And I wondered, okay, Kubrick, did you know about all this when he cast him? Did he see the date on the call sheet?
Did he go back and do the research and find out when he was born just to put that reference into the movie? Like,
yeah,
do you put it past him?
I don't put it past him at all.
I don't. So just because of some of the things that he did and some of the things he said and his like reported relentlessness for detail.
Oh yeah, you can't deny.
You can't discount. You can't discount
anything.
Weird,
even though like the gatekeepers of like Kubrick gatekeepers kind of want you to have it both ways and say, well, he wasn't putting all this secret weird stuff in his movies. But he was a perfectionist, and they're very, very confusing.
Well, I mean, you don't want to. I'm not going to say that I don't ride the fence or anything like that, but I try to be like non-biased or non-committal. Like, I feel like if you think everything is by design or by some cabal, when you watch a movie, when you see a movie, that's all you're going to see. You know what I'm saying? But if you're looking for things to be a little bit more articulate, or certain things might be related that you don't automatically see, like to give it thought, you get like a deeper, richer, like it's a potpourri of meaning, whether the person intentionally meant it or not. Instead of like so focused on its bits.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, if you go back, can you go back? There's one more thing I want to share, because it's like,
let me see.
Yeah, just keep scrolling down a little bit. And
all right, hold on. Where was it? I'm not sure.
Which window you have?
Yeah, there's a bunch of windows open. Ridiculous.
Well, so, okay, what I'm going to show is this. There's this movie called The Big Bus. The Big Bus came out in 1976.
I lost it.
So, that's all right. The Big Bus came out before The Shining, the movie came out, before The Shining, the book came out. But nevertheless, it's a story about a guy named Dan Torrance, who is a bus driver that is accused of, who is in a crash, and he's accused of resorting to cannibalism to survive. So we have a Dan Torrance being accused of cannibalism, but then in the scene, which I would like to have the picture of up for.
Yeah. I don't have your thing up yet, but I do have this window of the Big Bus. So it's a reference to the movie in and of itself.
Perfect.
And then I'll use this over here to find the Substack again. So go ahead.
Great. Yeah. So he's like, he's kind of outcast among the other bus drivers because they think he was a cannibal. But the exact dialogue is, before the crash, you weighed 180. When they found you picking your teeth, you weighed 237. Explain that. So here we have a Dan Torrance being accused of cannibalism and weighing 237 pounds. And it's crazy. I mean, and then he even winks at the camera when he says it, like, explain that, wink. And it's like, oh, and that's our job, basically, is to try to explain that.
Well, I don't know if you can, though, really. I mean, like, whether or not, because there's too many of them. Like, there's so many of them that you can't say they're all intentional. But it's to a degree where you're looking at some really, really damn smart people. And so there's always the question of, well, did they figure out what I figured out? Because you can't really, like, just assume that you're like the pinnacle of intelligence, or that you're the one who cleverly thought of this. Like, other people have read Young before you were born. So
that's true. Well,
New York and Denver. So it's going.
Oh yeah, it's even going to Denver. The bus. And it's, I think there's cannibalism in it. Or there's a 2001 reference, the music in there. It's just full of stuff. Actors like Sally Kellerman, Ned Beatty.
This guy's name is Joseph Bologna.
Joe Bologna is Captain. Blow Me is kind of like a blow bear kind of thing.
Alex Fulton. What if I do this and put Substack? Would that should get us there, right?
Let's see.
Boom. Yep. Yeah. Boom. Boom. No thanks. And then boom.
Yeah.
And then we'll worry about that here soon. Because I'm kind of interested in, like, originally you told me to read like the Willy Wonka Substack, and I was like, I want to focus on movie more. In fact, if you had a choice of another movie, if I had a good time, I hope you had a good time. If you wanted to do this again, do you have like another movie thought?
God, there's that. I mean, yeah. Well, I have to think about it. So, but there could be.
Yeah, for sure. Hit me up. So, is this the one that has the big bus? Where's the big
bus?
Bus?
It's at the very bottom.
Okay.
Below that, actually, a little further up. Sorry, it's like above that picture, and then a little bit further up. There it is. I guess I don't even have a picture. No, maybe
you don't even have a picture, but here it's right here. So the world has just begun processing the death of Truman when the survivors of Flight 571 held a press conference to tell their story. One that would be soon dramatized and even parodied, such as in the 1976 The Big Bus. The craziest part of this is what you can see illustrated in Sean's video, The Big Bus, despite having been released some years before The Shining, is about a bus driver named Danny Torrance, who has gotten a big reputation because he supposedly resorted to cannibalism to survive a terrible bus crash on top of Mount Diablo. See, now this brings up something that we were talking about, what involves Lauren Coleman, who cited in a very synchro-mysticistic way that a lot of weird events involving murder, alien abductions, cryptid sightings, all happen in places that are labeled either in English or another language as the devil, like Mount Diablo or the Devil's Den, places like this. And Lafayette also uses, but I've noticed that those places are usually close by anyways. Like, dialogue heard in the film spoken to Dan Torrance. Before the crash, you weighed 180. When we found you, you were picking your teeth. You weighed 270. Explain that. And offhand, how much time between? Well, see, there's been like flights, especially, have both been either metaphorically used to represent time travel, like in the movie Millennium or something, or there's been actual individuals who have taken flight and have come back reporting that they were flying over things that didn't exist until years later. So it's kind of interesting. Anyways, listen, I've got to go find out what's going on. We've been going for at least an hour, but this gives us the opportunity.
I want to have one thing that you, one thing that I wanted to get to which is about Henry Sugar, because I was talking about K-Span.
Oh yeah, we fucking didn't even talk about Sugar yet. Let's do that.
Well, that's okay. It's just real quick. Is that
but that's the one that I gave you? You gave me.
True.
So
I did my homework. I would be sad to not mention it, but what really got me here is the release date. Okay, it makes perfect sense because, okay, I talked about K days. Kubrick dies on his K day, obviously. Trump was like, it was his first business day as president, was his K day. RFK Jr. just had his K day, and it was like the day after he hooked up with Trump on stage. So like watching all these things, but this movie, can you guess whose K day this movie came out on?
Now explain K day again, just so
K day is so Stanley Kubrick, his lifespan is 25,792 days. Is basically a K day is when you reach the same age that Stanley Kubrick was when he died.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry,
okay. So that's your Kubrick day. That's why it's called a K day.
The K day, the Kubrick. That's when you hit your Kubrick day. 70 years, 7 months, 9 days, or something like that. Anyway, The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar premiered on the K day of Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh shit. I don't think, in my opinion, this is based off of a short story from 1977, which is around the same time as Big Bus.
Yeah, it is. That's true.
So this feels like soft disclosure for I swear, for like remote viewing.
Right, which is why when I say it's came out on Jeffrey Epstein's K Day, it's like this is about Jeffrey Epstein, this guy who's creating like orphanages and around the world, and he has superpower, or like he's learned these powers. And I mean, I don't know exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was doing, but it seems to be something along those lines. So I just thought that was a perfect sync, like, because he was like all up into science and like funding all MIT and stuff like that.
This is also a Roald Dahl movie,
right? Exactly.
He was M6, or what is it called? Like he was
MI6 or whatever.
MI6, yeah. He
was intelligence, and
he was
probably a spook of some kind. I mean, he literally was. So
what you have a lot here though, because of course Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but Mr. So Anderson has used Dahl multiple times.
Oh yeah,
because that Fantastic Mr. Fox was one of Anderson's.
Yeah, I think that was the first one that he did.
Wow.
So anyway, yeah,
that's kind of like Anderson, dude. And this is intelligence shit. So like, okay, because in Henry Sugar, there's like a bunch of the things that they're talking about, I'm like, now this is the stuff that they use for remote viewing. But then like they'll show like them in a hospital, and behind them there will be that blocky cross, the blue typical cross, but it's shaped like a card, like the psychic cards they use to teach people psychic abilities, like they do in Ghostbusters when he holds up the cards, and it could be either wavy lines or a cross or a triangle or whatever. Like there's like little things that they draw that make me think that they're giving you sort of like intelligence information, whether it be in like Sugar or Asteroid City or probably Fantastic Mr. Fox. I mean, other than his stuff being
Moonrise Kingdom is another one I think that's worth looking at. Moonrise, with like the children or the adults in the room again, and it's like an eternal romance between these. And again, a kid who looks like baby Kubrick. Honestly, in Moonrise Kingdom, he looks like baby Kubrick.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for viewing this video with us, whether you're doing it now or in the future or in the past. Who knows, man, the way things are working nowadays. But if you could, please share this. Get the word out about Meta Egg. We need your help to get us to where we want to go. I want you to also pay close attention to Crytokubrology, whether it be on X. Of course, look, man, if we do another show, line it up like that with the steals on Twitter, and we'll just go through it, because that was like, that kind of gave it that old school like blog feel.
Yeah.
Like Synchrosphere,
That's what I like to that's what I've been trying to recapture. You know, it was a great time back then, and it's been lost. And I think we should bring it back.
I think we're going to have to, because of the way copyright's working. I hope that none of that triggers copyright, but I'm hoping that gets us over the hump, that we go back to our roots, so we can get past this like stagnation of not being able to. It's impactful when you use the pictures and explain it that way.
Oh yeah, you have to. It's not worth it if you can't.
But I hope to do another show with you here soon. Again, if you think of a movie, just send it to me and I'll be right on it. Cool. And stay tuned. We got Andras, actor and film analyst Andras Jones, coming up. We got the professor of the history of religion, Catherine Wessinger, is going to be coming to join us for a series. We also have David Gill, who runs the Philip K. Dick website, Total Dickhead. He's going to be looking at Blade Runner with us. So everybody stay tuned to all of the stuff that we got coming out, and I will make sure to bring up Mr. Fulton back to join us. My batteries are running dead, but do you have anything to say on our exit, my man?
Yeah, man, just nothing. Thanks for having me, and I would love to come back and check out cryptokubrology.com and sign up if you can, for my archives. And I'm trying to do one big post a month, and maybe I think I'm even going to try to start podcasting a little bit, doing like a crypto.
Well, Andres has been trying to tell me to get on Twitter. And I think that you'll be able to show more videos and stuff on Twitter.
It seems like that's where we're headed. Yeah. So, but anyway, that's all I got. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.